Mr. Dennis Foust. How's it going?
What's going fine, Coach? How are you today?
Hey, I'm living the dream,
There
brother.
you go.
Hey, going 100 miles an hour, and it's this is a crazy time of the year for both of us.
Well,
isn't
sure
it?
it is. Sure it is.
So, Judge Dennis Foust coming in. Go ahead and kind of introduce yourself, and we'll get going.
All right, I'm Dennis Foust, and I am a 1978 graduate of Marshall County High School. I've been around Marshall County sports pretty well my entire life. I guess I first got involved playing baseball in the Calvert City Farm League when I was 7 years old. And that was back before we had the fields that we have here in Calvert. All we had was the old park.
No kidding.
And that was, you had a cornfield on the other side. Then they put another backstop up, and so we had a second field that we could play on. And so we did that until 1974, when the new fields, what we call the new park, of course, behind the Civic Center, when that complex was built. And I was actually the first groundskeeper there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a summer job.
Yeah.
And I prided myself on keeping, and I know people won't believe this, but it's real, keeping the foul lines just slightly going in, because I was a singles hitter who was pretty good bunting, and wanted to make sure that my bunts had a chance to stay fair.
Yeah.
So I did things like that, which we always laugh about when you go out to Mike Miller Park now. And I know I'm probably going to ramble quite a bit, but when we first started playing softball, when my daughter was 9, one thing we noticed about the way those fields were was that the lines were slanted in, and you could see slaps and bunts that would start out a foot foul and roll back into fair territory. And I didn't have anything to do with that design, but we took advantage of it. I mean, it's like girls, but we always had to tell the umpires too, just because it starts out foul, please do not call foul ball until somebody touches it or it gets past first base.
Yeah.
Then we go from there.
Yeah.
So it's but no, I've been around the sports scene for a long, long time.
Well, we are glad to have you as a guy that's known you for a long time. You have been a staple of Marshall County since I was a kid, and it's an honor for me to know you now and know you a little bit better from a different perspective.
Sure.
And I'm just thankful to be able to kind of share my passion with Marshall County with somebody that's lived it for a lifetime. You know, and I appreciate all that you still do for the Marshall County program. And I did not know. Fun fact: I did not know that the Doctors Park was built in 1974.
Yeah,
I didn't know that it had been around that long. And I remember my dad used to talk about the old field down there.
Oh yeah,
and man, I would love nothing more than to see that field kind of revitalized. Because it's a cool setting. It's kind of secluded down there, and you've got the park right there beside it for the kids to play, and it's cool.
You talk about. I go back to once we moved into the baseball program. Of course, back then you didn't have softball.
Yeah.
Although my dad tried to start a league for the girls because I do have 3 older sisters, and they were not softball players though.
Yeah.
So we focused on baseball, but after the baseball moved up into what's now Doctors Park, played slow pitch softball.
Yeah.
At out there, and I can tell you some stories about the slow pitch men's softball league, because Dayton Dexter, who's passed away, and that softball field was a passion of his.
Yeah.
I mean, he kept it in wonderful condition.
Yeah.
And people wanted to come to Calvert City to play softball. Well, they had a good softball league, but we would have tournaments. And Mr. Dexter hired me to I was the scorekeeper and the public address announcer. So I started doing PA. That's when I started my quote career doing public address. I got paid $1 a game, and for both. And he would have these tournaments. Like there'd be sometimes 34, 36 teams in a double elimination softball tournament.
Yeah.
Well, you had some local teams that weren't very good, but then you had some teams that would come in from Evansville, Hopkinsville, and they were good.
Yeah.
But what was funny about that, and I'll tell you some of the guys, in fact, when Marshall County and St. Mary played basketball this year, I looked up over in the crowd and there was Jim Long. And Jimmy, he's been around forever.
Oh, yeah.
And he and I have been friends for a long time. But I remember when he played slow pitch softball down at Calvert, and then Jimmy Brown came up. Jimmy was an umpire forever. In fact, he and my dad umpired high school together.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And then Jimmy came up and said something to me, and we got to reminiscing about. And Jimmy was a good softball player too. I was telling him about one of the things, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway.
I love it.
I'm 65 years old, and,
I love it.
No holds barred, I guess. But what would happen, and I learned this, you could get these teams that they'd come in, and the worst thing a team could do would be to advance through the winner's bracket and have to wait on all the other teams.
Yes.
Because what they were doing, these are 20-some-odd-year-old people. And they might have had a little bit of a party instinct. Well, the team that was in the winner's bracket, and they had to sit out there and wait when it's 90 degrees. Well, they're out in the shade, and they're probably drinking a little bit. Not probably. Well, then they'd come back, and they'd lose. They would lose because they just weren't quite as sharp. Might had a little too much to drink, and those home runs became fly balls that were caught 10 feet inside the fence.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
and, I've actually heard stories about how busy that field used to be from slow pitch softball to a point where at one point there were lights up, right?
Oh, there were always lights there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I played church league softball out there for a few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, now the lights weren't great, but I mean when I was playing in quote Bronco League, because we were Calvert tried to get a little league charter in the early 70s. Well, the Benton League had the little league charter, and they would not let the Calvert League play little league.
Really?
So Dad, fine, we'll find something. We went Bronco Pony Cold.
Yeah.
And Bronco League played baseball. Mm-hmm. It's not little league.
Right.
And to this day, and I'll watch the Little League World Series and all like that. And I have a friend in Bowling Green who has had kids play through the Bowling Green Little League, but they play a short Little League season, just enough that they can qualify. Then they pick an all-star team. Yep. But I've always asked this question about Little League World Series. Why are Little League pitchers pitching from the stretch?
I don't know, but there's a lot of kids that come up that don't learn the wind up.
No, right.
Like we've got one right now, does a great job, mm-hmm. but he threw out of the stretch the whole game.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is just preference. The same way that some guys are comfortable in a narrow stance, some guys are comfortable in a wide stance.
Sure,
I think some people are just comfortable throwing out of that stretch. It is simple. It's more simple. There's less steps. There's less things that can go wrong. But I think a lot of it, Dennis, is just that's what they're told originally, and that's what they stick with.
Well, and I get that. In fact, that's more or less what my friend told me.
Yeah.
He said because they just start out doing that. But of course, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I would say that, simply because in Little League you can't lead off and steal.
Right.
Because that was one of the things about Bronco League. We could,
mm-hmm.
and we played baseball.
Yeah.
Little League is lacking in that respect.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
No, I love it, man.
But it's baseball is baseball.
Yeah.
Leading off.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And kids learning how to steal bases.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, and I know you've seen it. One of the things that frustrates me about what has happened to the game of baseball, and I think it's taken a turn back toward the better, but you don't see small ball anymore.
Yeah.
All you see is let's load it up and
let her eat.
And and it's like how many kids do you have? And I know you work on it. How many kids do you have who really are comfortable if you give them a bunt sign, actually dropping a sacrifice bunt?
I would like to say that this year that number has increased because it's something that we have made a conscious effort to work on. Yeah. I would say 4.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. See,
I mean, honestly, yeah. I think I feel like the majority of our guys are selfless in that they will do it.
Sure.
But to say that the guys that feel comfortable doing it, I would say 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
But
well, I had I guess the last year that I coached summer league, when we were the Iron Pigs, we were playing a game, and I was never much of one for giving signals, and that goes back to the '80s when I was coaching Pony League, and we got our only win ever against what's now the Paducah Storm, and that was in the Pony League All-Stars. And Jim Grief, who has been a friend of mine for, since the 80s. Yeah, and he coached. He started the Storm as Team Supply. And now, that was the beginning of travel ball.
Right.
That also was the beginning of the end of the Paducah Pony League.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it was. But, we would play those teams, and I remember we were playing Paducah in All-Star game, and we were playing at Calvert. And I had Barry Goheen pitching. People didn't realize what a great baseball player Barry Goheen was.
Yeah. I've heard.
He was, Coach, he was tremendous.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always thought about Barry, and I would always get tickled because I coached him in Pony League, and his dad Benny would always say, "Dennis, tell him to get his hands down." He played shortstop and he played first base. Now, you can imagine what a first baseman he would have been.
Yeah.
But Benny would always get irritated because he'd just be standing out there and you think, and I said, "Benny, have you ever seen one go through his legs?"
Yeah.
No, it never happened.
Just let him do what he does.
He does what he does, and he does it quite well.
Yeah.
But Barry, I always said he was so smart that he would, if he hit the ball, and it was funny because he batted left-handed, he threw right-handed. But
that's a good combo.
Yeah.
It's a good combo.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do with Rex right now, my little boy.
Well, that's,
and Avery both. And Abigail.
See, not that I was a great baseball player, because I was a decent player.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just call it that. But I batted left-handed.
Yeah.
And threw right-handed. Gave me an advantage going down the first baseline.
Yeah.
Because I could get from home to first as fast as anybody. Simply because when I hit, I'm out of the box.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about Barry is when he hit the ball, from the time he left his bat, I think in his mind he calculated, is it a single, is it a double, or is it a triple?
Yeah.
And he put out just enough effort. If it's a double, he'd be standing at the double and the throw would be right there, just just a second late.
Yeah.
But I just thought he had a skill that most people didn't have.
And I think you see that now. I mean, you've got kids with instincts. That's what we refer to it as. You can call it a skill, you can call it instincts, whatever. And you talking about him and just how it seemed like it just came naturally to him, and his dad's constantly on him. I think as a coach, sometimes you can almost coach athleticism out of kids, and and as an instructor, as a guy that really tries to get kids to do things the right way, I think it's important that we have to realize as coaches now that sometimes what they're doing works. You got to let them do it. And
right.
I think that has shifted in me as a coach, as I just try to present them with different things to help them figure out what works for them the best.
Sure.
And, you got a kid that can naturally hit the ball. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the swing isn't pretty.
No.
It just works.
Yeah.
And there's guys in the pros, their swing isn't necessarily pretty.
No.
But it's got them there,
well, I think back to the old days with the Pittsburgh Pirates and Manny Sanguillen.
Mm-hmm.
He was the best. They always said he was the best bad ball hitter in the game at that time.
Yeah.
And I mean, but it worked.
Yeah,
it worked for him. But going back to what I was talking about, and this is, like I said, a pet peeve of mine: the inability of players to execute a bunt.
Yeah,
because it can make a difference in a tight ball game. Get that runner in scoring position. You may get a run in that you wouldn't otherwise get. But and that's another thing about Barry. If I was coaching on third base coach, and we were in the first base dugout, I could look over at Barry and kind of signal, and he knew what to tell the rest of the team.
Yeah.
This is what he wants next.
Yes.
I didn't go through it. I never could give signals.
Yeah.
But what I would do is I would have my players hopefully thinking 2-3 pitches ahead.
Yes.
And what I would do is I would tell them, okay, things like first pitch, I want you to take, because we can steal on this catcher. I don't want to waste a sacrifice bunt.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. And that would work out. But I had a kid one time, I told him, I said, okay, first pitch, you're going to fake bunt. Second pitch, you're bunting. You are bunting. This was not giving a sign. This was saying you are bunting. Mm-hmm. First pitch, he swung the bat. I was, needless to say, quite unhappy.
Right.
And I called him over to the side and I said, what part of take and then bunt did you not understand?
Right.
Well, okay. I left him in the game because summer league, one of the things I was always trying to do in summer league is also get the players to learn how to think for themselves.
100%.
Yeah, and know how to play the game rather than having to turn and look at me for everything.
Right.
Next game, same thing happened. I blew a gasket.
Yeah.
And after that, it's like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
In fact, I threw such a fit that I think his mama was whining about me on Facebook.
Oh, I'm sure.
And you know something? I didn't care. Yeah. I really did not care.
Yeah.
But I guess it was so much that Shane Darnold, who was he was vacationing, he called me and he says, what in the world did you do? And I told him. And then Mike Johnson was the high school coach at that time. And I said, Mike, I don't think that this kid has much of a future for us in baseball. He thought it was funny too.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's like, it's simple. It's a simple game. I mean, and it really, in a lot of ways, it is. But then little things can make the difference. Yeah. One of the things that I see happen, and I don't know, I think it has happened. I've seen, okay, you have a play, maybe there are 2 outs, and a runner's trying to stretch a single into a double, and he gets thrown out at second for the last out, but you've got a runner coming home, mm-hmm. and I'll see players easing up. It's like, what if you don't cross the plate before that tag is made? And it does happen. Yeah. And people say, well, you're paranoid. No, you run hard until the play's over.
Right.
Give yourself the best chance. But I think today, a lot of our kids don't even think about that.
I think the biggest thing, and we talk about this all the time, is a lot of kids just don't watch baseball.
No.
And this is something, Dennis, that I think I've had this conversation with you before. But when I came back, before the high school opportunity even presented itself, mm-hmm. I was trying to not necessarily build baseball and softball in this area, but I was just wanting to make it even better.
Right,
Because I think we've got a good situation right here, and there is something with Little League that I would love to get your opinion on.
Sure.
But just growing the game, growing baseball, and growing the passion. Because if there is one thing about this game, and myself, it's that I love it. Right. I love everything about it. I love the adversity, the lessons that it teaches. I love the game itself. I love the competitiveness. I love the feeling that you get when you walk to the plate and the runner's on third. And I love all that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And I think part of it, with the Lake area stuff that I was trying to do, was get an OVL team in this area so that kids could go to the game and enjoy the game without playing it. Yeah. Because I think that there is something about that. Some of these kids in our area don't get the opportunity to go to a professional baseball game. Right. They don't get the opportunity to go to a UK game or Western Kentucky or games to see it played at a high level. And so, and I know you can probably speak on this too, but taking the boys to Busch Stadium this year, there's multiple benefits to that.
Oh, no question.
The atmosphere, the environment of having the opportunity to play on a major league field. I never had that opportunity. I've never even set foot on outside of other some opportunities. Sure. Never had the opportunity to play on it. Definitely never had the opportunity to coach at it.
Right. Well, I did get the opportunity to coach third base for one inning.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it on. I saw it on Facebook
when Mike was coaching.
Yeah.
And because I guess I was thinking about that. I think 2014 was the year after Chandler graduated that we got into the mix with going and playing after a Cardinal game. And there's a funny story about that. Austin Johnson was our catcher, and the team we were playing, of course, the attitude on that was you try to get as many players in. Yes, you're playing to win, but more importantly, you're playing. You're doing that so that each kid can say, "Hey, I was on the field at Busch Stadium."
Right.
But Austin came back after about the third inning. He said, he said, just seemed like they knew what we were throwing. And then he said, and he came back and he said, yeah. He said, I'm giving signs, and in the center field they're showing me, and the hitters are seeing my signs.
Right. I had somebody tell me that the first couple innings it's tough on the boys because it's almost like a sensory overload. Like there's so much going on around you that it's hard to lock in. Yeah.
And then you also have, and I know they have to do this, but then you have the people who are in charge of, they take care of the field and this and that, and they're very nitpicky about what kind of shoes you wear, this, that, all the other, and I'm not going to go into Brooks Stadium. I have nothing. Anyway, that is what it is. But I'll tell you what, it is. It's well taken care of.
It is. It is.
Well, I'm not going to comment on what happened to the Paducah American Legion. Yeah. Of course, now you played for Post 236.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're bringing this up because I was actually wanting to talk about this. Yeah. I think the Legion scene is I did play for it. Yeah. And I think that it's something that I wish was still around and more prevalent, just because I think the ability for kids to play with their colleagues and their friends from not only the same school but just surrounding schools. Yeah. That was as far as high school. I remember more from Legion ball than I do from high school, and I don't know if maybe that's just I don't know why that is, but I remember playing for Post 236. I played for Billy, right? And then one of my coaches was Scott Hurst, whose boy is at Lyon County now. He was our junior Legion coach for a couple years. Okay. But man, it's just such a cool thing, and I don't know the ins and outs at Paducah, but I know we played our home games at Mike Miller.
Right, yes.
And, man, it was always so competitive. I talked about this with Kent Wallace. That was those teams were stacked. And you talk about taking the best of each school, each area, and putting them all together. Man, it was a blast.
Oh yeah, my only complaint about back then was that Paducah could bend the rules if we can only take so many from some school because of the populations, but then they'd always find a way to get the star that should have been playing for post 236 or Mayfield or whoever.
Yeah.
But
it's very true,
and it most certainly is. But I also think that led to the demise of Legion ball around here. It's just like Kentucky and Louisville in basketball. Kentucky needs Louisville to be pretty good. Mm-hmm. Now, they don't need to be as good as Kentucky. I'm a Kentucky fan.
Right.
I'm a UK grad. But it's where basketball is better when you have Kentucky and Louisville both good, Western good, Murray good, more.
Exactly.
It's better. When the competition is at a higher level.
Yes.
And that's the way it would have been with Legion ball.
100%.
I know you coached Junior Legion when Chandler played.
Yep.
And Chandler was, and then the year after he played, then Scott Matlock was coaching the Senior Legion team, and Chandler was rostered on both Junior and Senior Legion.
Yeah.
And he played some, but he then his junior year he broke his leg at Crittenden County in a high school game. Second or third game of the season, and he broke his leg and tore ligaments, and it was gruesome. And really, he never was the same after that.
Did he do it sliding?
Sliding
I feel like
into
you told me
home,
that. Yeah.
a meaningless run. Where, just to be quite honest, it was funny because I say funny. There wasn't
wasn't funny then.
Funny about it.
Yeah.
But Craig Johnson and I were sitting together in the stands, and because we weren't using Game Changer then, but whatever program, I was keeping it.
Yeah.
And he's coming in, and we both stood up and said, "You're up, you're up." The hitter, I guess had his.
I know exactly what you wanted to say. Wasn't paying attention.
Wasn't paying attention, and Chandler goes in, and I mean he's like, oh, he's hurt, and you could just tell. And that's probably one of the worst things that I've ever seen in baseball.
Yeah.
Of course, he like father like son, because I did the same thing. When I was playing Colt League in Benton in a summer league game.
Oh, no.
I tried to score from second on a pass ball because the catcher couldn't find the ball.
Yeah.
Got halfway home and he found it, and I wasn't even playing for my team. We struggled to get enough kids to play. We were just out playing baseball, having fun.
Yeah.
And I tried to hook slide around the tag, and of course the right-handed hitters, it was dug out and caught my ankle. I didn't tear ligaments. I just broke my ankle. I got up, hobbled off the field, drove home, and told my mom that I'm hurt. I'll go to the doctor in the morning. I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it had swelled up, and it was throbbing. Went up to the doctor. They x-rayed it and said it was just a small bone, but I had to soak it in an ice chest off and on all weekend to get the swelling down. Then they put a cast on it, and I was out for 4 weeks. And then I had to. Well, you didn't have all the rehab back then.
Yeah.
So I had to pretty well do that on my own. But I've none the wear for it. But Chandler's was much more intense. But he broke the same bone I broke.
Yeah.
But that's just so frustrating. But what was funny is, during the summer, he actually got to come back and bat. And this was Coach Thorpe's last year as coach on last game, and I think we were playing Graves, and he put him in as a pinch hitter, and he got hit by a pitch.
You're kidding?
Oh no! Chandler had the worst luck of anybody.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. But so. I was out in Billings, Montana, and at a specialty court conference, and I got a call from Scott Matlock. It was night. He said, could Chandler? Post 236 had to forfeit the game because they didn't have. I think you had to either have 10 or 11. You had to have 10 players in order to play. Of course, you only played 9, but you still had to have a 10th player. And Scott said, we've still got him rostered. Do you think he would come down and just sit in the dugout with us? And so I called him. That's not really Chandler's style. I said, Chandler, you got some friends on that team. They had to forfeit because of that. And Chandler said, yeah, I'll go down there. So he went down there, and Post 236 won the game. So they're going to play the next night. And I was getting home, and I got home in time, and he said, you care if I take my bag down there?
Just to go.
Yeah. I said, fine, that'd be fine. So he goes, and I get a text from Scott. He says, has Chandler been released to play? I said, yeah. Next thing I know, he was in the starting lineup.
Yeah. And
had a pretty good game. It was interesting, but you know, and I think we were playing Mayfield, and Chandler had played ball with and against a lot of those kids on the Mayfield team.
Yeah.
And that was always a good experience.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt to be playing with other kids in summer ball. I mean,
it's great.
It's great. It really is. Yeah.
You know, because you're building relationships with people that you're going to really play with and against for 4 years.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and I think I actually have talked about this a little bit before, but I remember in the beginning I had some I guess criticism about the fact that I had kids from other schools playing for Lake area and it was based in here. Man, I love it.
Yeah.
I think it only makes everybody better. You know, and you hit the nail on the head when you said Kentucky needs Louisville. That is, the better baseball that you have around you, the better we all become as a whole.
Yeah.
And then whenever you create a strong hub of talent, now that starts to attract more schools to come to this area and recruit kids. Right. Now you've got this group of schools that are playing each other that now you're attracting coaches that's now letting those kids find opportunities elsewhere.
Sure.
And Dennis, like this weekend, hopefully, I think, as of right now, I've got some coaches that are coming in to watch some of those games because we have good schools. You know, we're playing McCracken County on Friday night.
Right.
We're playing Festus, Missouri, who won the state tournament in Missouri a couple years ago. We're playing them the next game.
Sure.
And then we got Graves County is playing Festus the next day. So,
you
know, you're looking at an opportunity for a coach for high school baseball. It's not as recruited as it once was,
right? Because
you have travel ball opportunities. And I try to explain this to people all the time, is if you're a college coach and your time is a premium, right? Yeah. So you don't have a lot of opportunities to get out and go, especially in the spring, because you're also playing.
Right.
So unless you're a high salaried program,
right,
you don't have the staff to just send and go because you need them, you know, doing whatever on game day.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the most bang for your buck, are you, and this is just me being honest, are you going to send your recruiting coach to a high school game where you might see 3 guys that you're interested in, or are you going to send them to a travel ball tournament where every kid out there is probably recruitable in some form or fashion? And that's where those funds are allocated. I was the same way at Wren Lake. Only difference is I knew that there were kids in this area that were going unseen, so I would come to games.
Right,
I mean, I came to Marshall Graves multiple times. I came to McCracken Tillman several times. I came to several games and recruited a lot of kids out of this area because I knew.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I think that's an interesting point, and I think that in that regard, I think travel ball is beneficial.
Yes,
there are also situations where there are kids who can't play travel ball, don't need to play travel ball, and frankly, as a parent, my travel ball experience with Chandler was not very good because we were never on a good team.
Right.
Chandler wasn't a.
He played for me one year. Dennis, now watch it now.
Well, and he loved playing for you.
Yeah.
I won't talk about how he referred to the balls that you all would hit them.
No, whatever. Whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
it's funny.
He would always laugh and say, he said, yeah, now nice thing about T.O.'s, he hits piss rockets.
Still do.
Yeah. Well, that's
do.
okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But
That's funny.
but that is what it is. But a lot of times, and the question I was gonna ask you is, okay, when coming from that perspective, did you ever see times where, okay, and I hear say people say, well, so and so's they're gonna have a scout here to watch. Let's just say Bagby, whoever, Bagby would be one they'd be looking at now. In the past, other players. Did you ever see where the player is like, people were worried that, because a scout's here, is that going to make him nervous where he has trouble performing because he is so anxious to do something? Now, one, have you ever seen that? And two, actually, you're supposed to be the one asking the questions.
No, I love it, man. I love it.
This is something, and would you take that into account? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so multiple part question there, and I like it. Yeah. So, as a coach of a current high school team, I typically won't tell the kids. If I know that a school is coming, I won't usually tell them.
Okay.
Now, sometimes that kid, you have to know the player,
right,
and you have to know their personality. Are they a kid that flourishes in that environment with a little bit of increased pressure, or are they a guy that's going to give them anxiety and it's going to kind of cause them to lock up?
Sure.
And I think that's just kind of our job as coaches, is to know that, right?
Right.
So there are kids that I told Evan Oakley whenever he had schools coming to watch him, because I felt like he would rise up. Mm-hmm. There are other kids that they had no idea that coaches were in the stands.
Yeah.
As a college coach, I wanted them to know I was there.
Okay.
Because and it wasn't like I tried to make my presence known,
right,
in terms of like making a big fiasco or something, but I would usually sit right behind home plate.
Yeah.
And typically every college coach has the same look. You know, you're usually coming in some sort of gear that has your stuff on it. You've got your hat on, you've got your backpack with your radar gun, your stopwatch, all your notes, all that sort of stuff. Now, there are times, however, that I was unseen. And it was typically after I had already seen that kid once,
right,
and I would go and I would lurk in the press box. And the reason I would do that is I wanted to see if they had a bad game, how they showed that. Did they have bad body language?
Sure.
And I'm telling you right now, bad body language was the first indicator. Write them off. And Dennis, I've done it. Yeah. I had a kid. I had a couple kids. We hosted a prospect camp at Rend Lake, and I think we ended up having a ton of kids, like 100 and something kids there.
Yeah.
And only a handful of them broke 85 on the mound.
Okay.
And this one particular player he was like 87, 89. Then he caught, and he was like a two flat, realistic, like a two flat. And he hit the ball around a little bit. I think in our little inter squad, he hit 2 doubles.
Yeah.
Great overall athlete.
Uh-huh.
And the one at bat that he didn't get a hit, he struck out.
Yeah.
His dad yelled at him from the stands. He yelled back at his dad and then went in the dugout, our Rend Lake dugout, and punched the wall. What do you think I did?
I think that was the end of that story.
See ya.
Absolutely.
And that kid ended up getting a full ride to another school. Proud of him.
Yeah.
But that is not something I wanted to deal with. Bad body language is toxic. It's, negative body language presents negative energy.
Yeah.
And negative energy yields negative results. And I've told our boys, I said it the other way, right? Positive energy yields positive results.
Yes.
But same can be said either way. And it's all a matter of perspective. And I think that is a great question that you asked there, because, it's really not really a one size fits all. After I had seen the kid, I wanted to see how he responded if he didn't know I was there.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Just a fly on the wall.
Oh yeah, yeah, and because I'll see that, and one thing, the old saying, "Ball don't lie," or "Ball doesn't lie." One thing I know, the kids, they know. Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that? They know they separate themselves out. They know who the star player is. They know who the best players are. They know if they're in that elite level.
Yeah.
They also know if they're not. And the ones who may not be can still make great contributions.
Yes.
They just have to accept,
yes,
a different role. It may be that, you have a kid that, okay, he may not hit for high average or anything like that, but he'll hit behind the runners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see much of that anymore.
No. Just station to station stuff.
Yeah. And I'd like to see more of the, hit and run. I know it's not as easy as it once was, but all by the same token, how many kids do you have who can actually do that?
Yeah.
But I go back to when I played, I always said hit the ball where it's at.
Yeah.
I know that grammatically is not correct. Sorry, Ann, you're not going to be watching this anyway. Ann's a retired English teacher librarian, so I don't have to worry about that. But if the ball was on the outside of the plate, I would try to take it to left field.
Yeah.
If it's inside, I'd pull it.
Yeah.
I was a spray hitter.
Yeah.
You don't see much of that anymore. I remember when Coach Bach was, and you played for Coach Bach.
Oh, I did. I did.
I coached. I was the assistant coach for Coach Bach in '93.
Mm-hmm.
I said I was the difference in us winning the
there you go.
first
That's
regional
right.
championship.
That's right.
Brought me along as the assistant, and
hey, when morale's high, good things happen.
There you go. But we had, it's like I said something to Coach Bach one time about, well, what are you going to do in this situation? He said, I'm going to give the ball. And we had Scott Chambers.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to tell him to go with number 1, and it'll take care of everything.
That's right.
Wasn't anything fancy about it.
Yeah.
But that team was, I still believe, one bad bounce away from a state championship.
Yeah, talk about that, because I know you've told me this, and and it's kind of a cool story.
Well, in '93 we won our first regional tournament, and at Brooks Stadium, we beat Ballard first game. Corey Belcher,
Mm-hmm.
he was our number 4.
Yeah.
He pitched, got us a win. I think we beat Ballard 5-3. Next day we were playing Lone Oak, and Bach was not going to lose to Mizell.
Yeah,
that just was not going to happen. So I remember Jim, and I thank the world of Jim Mizell.
Yeah,
I got another Mizell story to tell you too, but that goes back to when I was playing. But before we get there, he's saying, "You're not going to pitch Chambers, are you?" Bach says, "I got to win to get there."
That sounds just like
him. And he was going to worry about that later.
Yeah.
So we beat Lone Oak. I think Chambers might have given up a run. We beat them 7-1, and then Reedland and St. Mary played, and St. Mary upset Reedland. Reedland was the team that we had. Well, when you played, they were the nemesis.
Yeah.
And that was the team we had to beat.
Yeah.
Well, we had beaten them by 1 run during the regular season, and we're thinking that's who we're going to play. Well, they imploded against St. Mary, and St. Mary just thumped them.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're playing St. Mary in the regional finals, and they let's see I think they put Chris Haas pitched for St. Mary, and at that time he just threw smoke.
Yeah.
And
his boy's a senior this year.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah. And now Chris is coaching at St. Mary now, right? Okay. But I mean, he came in and just he was throwing smoke. We got a couple of runners on, and J.R. Reynolds hit a screamer down the left field line.
Isaac's dad.
Yeah. We scored 2 runs in the top of the first. That was it. That was the ball game. That was the final score.
Oh wow!
We won 2-0.
Game.
And Trevor Parker started for us pitching, and he went 4 innings, and I still think he hurt his shoulder in that game, because I'm not sure how much we'd have been able to depend on him. But then Darren Boatwright came in and finished it off, and I remember Bach went out to talk to him. Bottom of the seventh, he came back he just had a look on his face, and he said, "I said, what did Boatwright tell you?" He said, "Go start the bus." And it was like, that's just the way Boatwright was.
I love it. Man. I love that attitude.
But that was the kind of team we had. They were not the greatest hitting team in the world.
Yeah.
They didn't have to be. Their defense was just so good. But so we win the regional, and there you had 4 sub-states. And we went to Bowling Green and played Warren Central. And Chambers was pitching. Everything was going well. We played the second game. In the first game, Grayson County had beaten Christian County 1-0. And David Joyner was the coach of Christian County, and he pitched off. And I know Christian County fans grumbling, well, why did he do that? And Christian County had beaten us 1-0 in the regular season.
Yeah.
So we're all sitting there. We're all about the same. But I thought, how are you going to criticize him? Christian County had to score at least 1 run to win.
Yeah.
They got beat 1-0. It wasn't the pitching that beat them.
That's tough.
Yeah. So then we've got Warren Central, and things are going our way, and we made an error, and there was 1 out. I think it's the 5th inning. I'm not sure, but ground ball. Kevin Rudd was our shortstop. Taylor, it's a double play ball. We're going to turn it. It's going to be Boo Rudd to JR.
Taylor made.
Ball hit the lip.
Oh, no.
And bounced over his head. Wasn't a thing he could do about it. They scored, and then they went ahead. So we're down 4-3 in the top of the 7th, and they were home team. And had 2 outs, and Trevor Parker was at bat. He hit a screaming line drive into right field. And I thought he ran as hard as he could. He might have been slow coming out of the box. But the ball bounced right into the right fielder's hand.
Oh, no.
1 throw. And I'm coaching first base. And I'm going, he's there, safe. Umpire.
Oh, no.
We lost 4-3. And I looked at the umpire and I said, you can't blame me for wishful thinking.
Yeah.
He was out. He was.
Yeah.
And we lost the game. But I still go back to the bad hop double play ball.
Man, that gives me goosebumps. That's why I love baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Any given day.
It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then, going back to 2009, of course, you graduated a year too early.
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
Knew a lot of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so proud of those guys because those were a lot. Obviously, those are my friends. My cousin was on that team.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't say jealous. I'd say envy. You know,
sure.
I would have given anything to have.
Well, I wish we could have just done it the year before when you were playing.
I know.
Yeah.
You know who beat us? Ballard County.
Yeah.
Caleb Shelley. Never forget it. I'm pretty sure that's who beat us.
Yeah.
Because it was like he was a low 80s lefty.
Yeah, but
and everything he threw moved.
Okay, now speaking of low throw lefties, why? Please tell me, why is it that we historically, not in 2025, but in 2008, we've always had trouble with that type pitcher.
Yeah.
Why?
Man, everybody does. I don't really know. I know I struggled with it my entire career.
Yeah.
My roommates in college, one of them was a hard throwing righty, and one of them was a soft throwing lefty with a good changeup, good two seam. And you asked me who I'd rather face, it was 100% the righty every single time. And I think part of it is just mechanically as a hitter, as an athlete, period. You get into a point where sometimes it's better to just react.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes with velo, you look at it from a perspective of a pitcher to a hitter. It's easier mechanically as a hitter to get to a strong position, pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Right?
Right, yeah.
Now when you start adding in, getting your foot down, staying back, keeping your hands back.
Yeah.
it just adds more to it. You go all the way back to talking about a wind up versus a stretch.
Sure,
you're changing it,
right.
And it's just adding more things in there that can go wrong. So now you take a good hitter that can see the ball and react and just catch a fastball, and now you're having to battle getting out on their front foot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it's tough, man.
Well, sure it is. But that's always, and like you said, I'm sure it's not just us. But you mentioned Caleb Shelley because we played softball against his sister.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think Chris is his dad. They're good people.
Yeah.
And Ballard, Ballard is a school that they've had some pretty good teams.
Heck yeah, man! All these teams, even the small schools, they always have one or two guys that'll beat you. If you show up. Hickman County beat us on and I say Hickman County, not anything derogatory towards them. They're just small, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess it was 2 years ago they beat us on our senior night because they threw their best guy.
Yeah.
And they beat us 1-0.
Yeah.
Because he shut us down.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did everything we could.
Right. But a good pitcher on a good pitcher on a given day.
Yeah.
If you've got that good pitcher. And let's face it, I mean, now the way the tournaments are set up, the way it was set up when back in, say, the 90s, you needed 3 pitchers to get through the regional tournament.
Yeah.
Of course, now the way it's set up, it's still the same way as far as the region, but when you get to the state, if you've got 2 top quality pitchers,
absolutely.
If you can get there and you have 2 top quality pitchers, and that's where we were in '93.
Yeah.
And then in 2009, when they went back to the state, of course, it was we beat Henderson County in a 2 out of 3 sub-state, and then the top 8 teams went. Of course, now all 16 teams go. But the interesting thing about Henderson County, they beat us one of the 3 games, and the game that they beat us, they pitched an 8th grader.
Yeah. We
had faced him in travel ball when Chandler was playing travel ball, and I think we, even back then, he had same mechanics. They taught him how to pitch from the time he was 10 years old. He hit us back then, and we didn't do very well against him. I wish I could think of his name because I don't know what happened to him.
Right.
I know he pitched through high school certainly, but a lot of times a kid, arms have so many innings.
Yep. And
they, if you don't manage them, they can. But then I've also heard the flip side. How many innings did Nolan Ryan throw?
Yeah.
Conditioning's a lot of it, but we don't. And I'm guilty of this too, worrying too much about pitch counts.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that there is a pitch count rule now. I really am.
Yeah.
Because when you come right down to it, a kid doesn't need to throw 150 pitches in a ball game. In fact, if he's around the plate, a good pitcher can do. Can get by on 90 or fewer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason if you have decent control.
Yeah. I know we had Bagby threw yesterday, and he threw in 5 innings, he threw 60-something pitches, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's very efficient. And I think the pitch counts and stuff, man, I think they're very important. I do think that high school and upper level baseball coaches have a clue.
Yeah.
I think where you get in trouble is younger. You got a kid that throws, and fortunately a lot of these tournament bodies have started enforcing more strict pitch count rules, but having a kid throw 60 on Friday and then turn around throwing 75 on Saturday, that's terrible.
Yeah. Let me tell you a story. The last year that I was coaching Iron Pigs, we had a kid who played for Murray, who came over and was playing summer ball with us. I think I think his dad and Mike were friends, and he wanted to play, and we needed a player, good ball player. Well, I pitched him one night. It was like a Thursday night. We had a game, and pitched him. We were playing 5-inning games, and I think he pitched 5 innings. He probably threw 65, 70 pitches. Then I found out that he had a game with the Murray team the next day,
right.
and they pitched him again.
Yep.
Now, that wasn't my fault, and I wasn't trying to burn a pitcher, but somebody should have said, hey, oh, by the way, he's got a pitch tomorrow, so can you? And I would respect that. I was just glad to have him on the team, and he could play other positions. But by the same token, he was one of the better pitchers we had, so if he wanted to pitch, I'm going to give him the ball.
Yeah, there's kids out there, man, that'll throw on a Friday. And like I said, I think it's better now, but some of the bigger organizations, and I've talked about this in the past, the Houston Banditos, I was talking to a guy, they were flying kids out, to throw for them on Saturday and on Sunday and stuff. And not saying that they were doing this, but if that kid threw on Friday a full game with his team, and then he gets flied out on a Saturday, and then he throws again, if they're not communicating that, that is a lot of wear and tear on an arm.
And I blame a parent for that.
Yeah.
That's, parents have to,
yeah.
When you come right, we talk about parents, and one of the things that's good to get away from is daddy ball.
Yeah.
Because the exceptions are if you have a dad, and I'm not. If you coach your kid, that's one thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know the game, but a lot of daddies don't know the game.
Yeah.
But why is it everybody thinks they know baseball?
So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think a lot of times you have like this expectation or this goal for your kid, and sometimes that can skew your decision making.
Yeah, sure.
I think if your kid doesn't fall into shortstop on one team, either help that kid work to get another spot on that team, or we got to figure something else out. We can't keep pulling the kid from this team and then starting another team so that your kid becomes the shortstop.
Right.
And I think that in itself has really watered down the travel ball atmosphere. And I think that it all kind of feeds together. And that's something that I wanted to kind of get your opinion on, because you have always been a huge proponent of youth baseball, right?
Yes.
And so and at some point I want to talk about kind of the beginning of middle school baseball.
Sure.
But right now, what people are coming to me about, and I guess it's probably because I coach the high school and stuff like that, but with little leagues, them just not being very competitive at all. And I think that there's a couple things going on. I think that you have more travel ball teams.
Yes.
And I think that is pulling the more competitive kids, and I'm speaking very candidly here.
No,
you're pulling the more athletic or more talented kids at that point in their life,
right,
from rec league, right. So now the baseline competitiveness for those teams is much lower, right. So I think, in my opinion, two things need to happen. I feel like those travel ball kids need to continue to play rec league. And I think that especially up until probably 10, 11, sometimes 12 years old, those kids that are playing on more competitive teams on the weekends, get those reps. Get those reps at the rec league level. But then the issue with that is that the teams are so non-competitive that those travel ball kids, their complaint is I'm not getting any better, right? So how do we figure out how to keep those rec league teams strong, right? And I want to hear your opinion on it, and then I will tell you kind of what I think, and then how, because you've seen it all, man. You've started middle school baseball. You've seen how it's developed. You ran Mike Miller for a long time in those leagues and stuff. So
Ran Calvert before that.
Right. Yeah, so if you are a director of one of these leagues, how do we keep these leagues flourishing, growing, and continuing to develop these kids at younger ages so that they keep the competitive drive and they're developing along the way?
What we did, and I think Chandler might have been 12. We had we played in a league. We had 2 or 3 Marshall County teams. We had, we'd play Crittenden County, Trigg County. We played over in that direction.
And this is at what age?
This is age 12.
Yeah. Okay.
10 through 12.
Yeah.
And those age, but we'd play games Mondays, Tuesdays, and sometimes Thursdays.
Yeah.
And then Chandler, he was probably the only player on our team. We also played on a travel ball team that played weekends.
Yes.
But it was and I was coaching the teams. Basically, what I did with Chandler was to keep it interesting for him. I let him play different positions than what he would normally play. Because when go play a weekend, he was probably going to play second base.
Yeah.
And then if he hadn't broken his leg, he probably would have been the third baseman his junior and senior year. He ended up playing second his senior year too, but his arm developed and until he blew out his ligament. Long tossing senior year, he had no luck whatsoever. And the stamp on his what put the quiet end to his career was after he had blown out his elbow, we wanted to see if he could hit. So Mike was first year coaching, and put him in pinch hitter at Ballard. First pitch, hit him.
You've got to be kidding me.
No.
In the face?
In the face. And he went down. Everybody said, Chandler, lay down. I was, of course, I was keeping game cast, and then it ended. The game cast ended at that point because,
Oh my goodness.
And okay, it was kind of, it wasn't funny. No,
again, it's not funny.
Not funny. But he spit up, and I thought he's spitting blood, and I said, I'm at that point I'm a parent.
Oh yeah.
And I said he's still spitting blood. Well, Craig Johnson's wife Becky, who is a nurse practitioner, she looked over at me and says, "It's not blood." I thought he was breaking the rule. He was a dip.
Oh no. And he's spitting it out.
He spit. Becky said, when she said that, it was like, okay, all right.
No.
Well, anyway, I took him to the emergency room. I wasn't 5 minutes out of the parking lot at Ballard. My mother called. She said, "What happened to Chandler?" I said, "What?" I said, "Well, he got hit in the head, getting hit in the face with the ball. He's okay, but we're going to the emergency room." She knew because it stopped.
Yeah.
The game cast stopped.
Game paused.
Yeah. And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
But before we talk about the leagues, I've got to tell my Mizell story.
Yeah.
Like I said, Jim's been a friend forever. But we were playing Lone Oak my senior year, and we were down at Lone Oak, and one of the umpires was a no-show. And Dad came to the game. He really wasn't umpiring that year. He had decided he didn't want to umpire. He wanted to watch me play my last year of baseball.
Right.
So he's down there, and he had umpired games for Jim in the past, and they were friends. And Jim said, "Ray, will you help us out and call the bases?" Dad told him, I don't want to. He said, "But Ray, we're not going to get to play." Dad said, "Okay." So he goes out there. First inning, Lone Oak's batting, and I don't even remember who it was from Lone Oak. He swings, ball's in fair territory, he runs into it. Dad calls him out. It's a simple call.
Yeah.
Jim comes out hollering. He said something, and Dad said, "Mizell, whatever. And Jim said, well, that's a Marshall County call. And Dad looked at him and said, what'd you say, Mizell? He said, Ray, I'm sorry. Dad threw him out of the game. And then he was up in the stands kind of whining about it. And my mom, who was there, said, well, here's where you can mail his check. That was the end of that. But
your mom's such a sweet lady.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
But it was, of course, they got the last laugh because I think they 10-runned us.
Yeah.
My senior year, we did not have a very good team. And it was sad because we found ways to lose games.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but we'd had pretty good teams my sophomore and junior year, but we always ran into Murray High, who was just a little bit better.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
You want to talk about middle school?
Yeah.
We started middle school baseball. Chandler was an 8th grader, so that would have been in the fall of 2008.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, basically, it was me. I think Mike was involved.
That would have been about the
at Murray
same
High.
time frame. Yeah.
Billy Thorpe wanted me to.
Right.
And then Gino Miller. Gino was directly involved in it. Jeff Sadler, who was at Ballard, he was very much involved in it. And then I think Groucho Shelton over at Mayfield, he got involved.
Yeah.
And I cannot remember if we had somebody from Graves or not, because I just don't remember.
Right.
But what we did was we put out feelers, who wants to play?
Yeah.
And the idea was we were going to play on Saturdays. You'd have 3 teams show up at a location and you play doubleheaders.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind that was for high school coaches to get to see what their 8th graders could do.
Right.
In terms of and also to expose the players to 60, 90 dimensions.
Right.
That's what it was all designed to do. We played 5 weekends, and then if we had a tournament, it was optional if you wanted to. That's all it was. Then it got a little more intense. And now they're playing 30 games in the fall. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we were not trying to take away from, like, football, other sports.
Right.
It's a mistake for a kid to say at age 8, I'm devoted solely to this sport.
Couldn't agree more.
It's a mistake.
Yep.
They need to play more than one sport. Now, eventually, they need to also figure out, do I really, I'm going to be 5'9" or 5'10", and I'm not going to be particularly quick.
That's why I quit basketball. And football.
Yeah,
and football.
Yeah. I mean,
eventually.
At some point you have to have that realization.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have it when you're 8 years old.
Right.
Chandler quit soccer because I got mad at the powers that be in soccer because they wanted to tell me what I was going to do, and it's like, no. That it doesn't work that way. We're not under communist rule, and we're not doing that. And that's funny. That's where I separated from soccer.
Yeah. And
I think soccer is a very good sport, and I'm not. We've had some great success in Marshall County soccer.
Absolutely.
I think I think it's a top-notch sport. But at the time, I was probably, and Chandler might have been a decent soccer player. I don't know, but I gave him a choice. I said, "You want to play fall soccer, or you want to go down to Lone Oak and play fall baseball?"
Yeah.
Fall baseball.
Yeah.
And we went and had a blast.
Yeah.
And then we didn't look back. But again, at some point in time, our kids, we've got to be honest with them, but let them know, okay, you can, or you're going to be able to do this, or you're not going to be able to do it.
Right.
But Cat's up 13-5. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue.
I will tell you from the high school coach perspective, I think middle school baseball is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think that it gives the ability to get kids a lot of reps.
Yep.
Especially early on in kind of their career. I think it also helps kids get excited about high school baseball. By them putting on that orange and blue jersey that says Marshall's on it.
Oh yeah.
I think it gets them excited. I love that they play at the high school now. I think that's phenomenal. That gets them pumped up. I love when our high school kids come out to practice and stuff like that. Even if they're only there just to be seen, I love it.
It's good. It's good.
And you look at those 8th graders that we invite up and to tryouts and stuff, and if they make the team, that is a long season for them. Because they're playing from August to the middle of September,
right?
And then they have that time between then and Christmas to do off-season optional workouts, and then they roll right into potentially high school baseball. And so those kids are playing 60-something games.
And it took me the longest time. I was admittedly wrong, but I just thought that the idea of the dead period was awful because of baseball.
Yeah.
Because you're setting out 2 weeks in the prime of baseball.
Yeah.
But I learned those kids need that.
Yeah, they do.
They really do. And the dead period, like I said, when Chandler was going through it, I didn't much care for it.
Yeah.
But I learned as Chandler continued through it, he needed that time off.
Yeah.
And the kids, they do need a break. They need, let's face it, the high school kids, they need a break from you. Some of them will stay with you forever.
Yeah.
But sometimes they need, and you need it too. You need a break from them.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think, and I've talked about this with other guests as well, is, I think that it's good that they hear different perspectives.
Yes.
And I think that some coaches have problems with that. Like, no, it's my way, it's the only way. No, I want you to have a different opinion, and then that gives them the ability to formulate their own opinion.
Right.
If you're constantly hearing it from one perspective constantly, then that, I don't feel like that really helps you grow as a player at a point in their life where it is most important for them to figure out who they are as a player and what works for them. Hear different things. Go to, I like for my guys to go to instructors because I think that it's important that they hear things. Now, are there things that I want to help them do maybe better? Yeah, absolutely. But if they don't have that other perspective, then I don't really feel like you can grow as a player. And I think it's the same with me. I think that it's important that I hear that I'm receptive to new ideas and new things because that's how we grow.
Absolutely.
And I'm still a young coach.
That's like, yeah, you are.
Kind of.
Yeah,
I'm 35.
Yeah, I know.
But
I know.
I've
Chandler turned 30 yesterday.
I know, and you know what's crazy is you and Bill. Well, it was Mr. Thorpe who was the head coach when I coached Chandler.
Right.
And I was trying to wrap my head around when that was because I'm thinking that they were maybe in 8th grade.
Yeah, they were in 8th grade. Chandler was an 8th grader in 2009.
Yeah.
When last regional tournament championship.
Yes. And Mr. Thorpe he called me or whatever and asked if I would be interested in coaching this team for a certain number of weekends, and I was all about it.
Oh.
That was really, I think that was the first team that I coached, and I was so young at that point. I was actually practicing with them. I would get out there. I would hop in there and we would be doing inter squad or whatever, and I would get in there and hit with them, and I loved it, man. I still do that now.
Yeah,
honestly.
well, I understand. Well, I know Chandler loved playing for you, but now there were some kids who didn't want to put that much effort into it. But that's what at that time that's what Chandler wanted.
And and I think, Dennis, that's the only gear I know is 100%. And I'll give you an example. Like we bus left at 8:00.
Okay.
This past weekend.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I know is early work at 7. Bus leaves at 8.
Yeah.
Early work being extra ground balls, fly balls, BP.
You got that honestly.
Hey, that's the only thing I know. So I send that stuff out.
Yeah.
Well, I go to the office because I left my keys in my classroom or whatever. So I'm walking through. Well, there's a young man that I know just through the school, and he goes, "Hey, Coach, got some grumblings about the 7 a.m. practice." I said, "What?" And he goes, got some unhappy players about the 7 a.m. practice. I said, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
I said, "Bus leaves at 8." And he goes, "Yeah, but optional ain't optional." I said, "No, it is." Yeah. I was like, what I'm saying is I'm going to be there at 7 o'clock for anybody that wants extra work.
Yeah.
Show up if you want to show up. If not, bus leaves at 8.
Yeah.
Be ready.
There you go.
And that's just the only thing that I know. And I remember what it was like as a player if I didn't get swings or if I didn't get ground balls before I played. I didn't feel prepared. And I don't ever want any of our players to feel that way.
Yeah.
Ever.
And there's no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, and making it available, that's what you ought to do.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when you come right down to it.
Yeah.
But no, there's a commitment. But I know when I coached summer ball, as far as like the X's and O's of pitching, the mechanics, hitting mechanics, I'm not your guy if that's what you wanted. And you talked about instructors. I could say the same thing to Chandler that Kent Wallace could say. But to get that message through, I had to pay Kent Wallace.
Yep.
And I love Kent.
Yeah.
And he basically, Chandler got into a hitting slump, and Kent, and I realized Kent worked with pitchers more. Kent rebuilt his swing.
Yeah.
I mean, because something had to be done. He had just developed some bad habits, and but Kent just basically broke him down and rebuilt his swing.
Yeah.
But then they would talk baseball during their sessions. And it's like, Taylor, I could have told you that, because he'd tell me, but he didn't care.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to listen to his dad.
Yeah.
But he's going to listen to Kent.
Yeah. And, I think at instructor hat on, I think a lot of it, obviously there are definitely concrete things that they need to know, they need to understand, they need to learn how to manipulate those sorts of things and that sort of thing. But I think as an instructor, the reason that people find so much value in instruction, private instruction, is because of confidence through preparation.
Oh, yeah.
And I think by coming in weekly or whatever it is, bi-weekly, whatever it is, you walk out of here feeling more prepared than you did when you walked in.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is what is the biggest benefit with private instruction. And I'll get parents that whenever I'm doing lessons, I haven't done lessons as much as I wanted since I took the high school job, just because of time and things.
Right.
But I would get parents that would message me, "Hey, such and such needs to get in with you."
Yeah.
They don't need it. They have every tool in the box.
Right.
All they need is to feel prepared when they leave.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I love it, because I genuinely feel like when kids leave, they feel better.
Oh,
and like I'll ask them before they leave, "Do you feel good about this?"
Yeah.
"Yes, sir. Yes, sir." They feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing with that part, because it's not, Dennis, at the end of the day, it's about competing once you get out there.
Right.
And we have kids right now that have done so many lessons and so many things with instructors. Hey, when you get on the field, forget it.
Yeah.
It's about competing.
Yeah.
That's why you do those things, is so that when you get on the field, you don't even have to think about it. It's competition. It's me versus you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna win. You know what I mean?
And building the muscle memory.
Yes.
Through the repetition.
Yes.
Then, but another thing that I will see is, I know when I played, I was middle infielder. I was always trying to be 3 steps ahead of whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't have the greatest range, but I had as good a range as anybody around, because I could anticipate.
Instinct.
I'd see where the pitch was going, and I would move in that direction. Some kids have it, some kids don't. I wasn't blessed with a whole lot of other, but I did have good instincts.
Yes.
But one of the things that when I was coaching summer ball that I would try to do with the kids is I'd tell them, okay, go, don't look to me for situational baseball. Look at the situation.
Yeah.
What can you best do to help the team?
Right.
I'll tell you the kid who was better at it than any kid I coached through Iron Pigs, Drake Anderson. Drake, he'd come over to me, and if they're playing back, can I drop one down? Well, yeah, Drake.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I would tell him is, look, do you play the game. I'm not going to tell you how to play it. If you do something wrong or you do something stupid, then I'm not going to yell at you. I'm only going to yell at you if I tell you to do something and you don't do it. But I felt like part of my role as a teacher was to say, okay, here's what happened. Here was the situation. Here's what you did. What if you had done something else? Would that have worked better? And that's what I would try to teach them. Because they needed to be able to play the game. I played. Barry Travis was the first baseball coach at high school, and I started for 3 years. Now my senior year, he had left the school system, and Jim Shelton coached, and I guess Coach Shelton coached until '92. And then they made Bach the baseball coach. Bach had been his assistant.
He did a long time.
Yeah. Coach Shelton was there. And in fact, Coach Bach was his assistant my senior year. So I played and coached under Don Bach. And but thing about it is, Coach Bach was, bless his heart, he might have been a little hard-headed. But he knew the game. Yes,
he did.
And
apparently he was really good.
Oh, he was. But one of the things I'd get tickled at him, he wanted a player to sacrifice bunt. Coach Foust, they don't want to do it. He said, I'll strike them out.
He would.
And he would.
He would.
Yes, he would. You're going to get that bunt down. You're going to get 3 chances at it. And I thought, that's... and he had a way of doing things. I remember... I guess we played Murray a couple of years later. We didn't get out of the district that year. We just, frankly, after our '93 team, we didn't have a lot of mojo for the next 2 or 3 years. But I remember we were playing Murray in the district, and he had scouted them out. And he had his pitch. He was calling the game. We lost the game, but it wasn't because of his lack of preparedness. His preparation, everything that he, scouted about him. And we didn't have the benefit of all the electronics that we have now. It was, everything unfolded just like he said it would. Unfortunately, they executed and we didn't. They were the better team. Sometimes that happens. That's like watching Arkansas and St. John's yesterday in the basketball. What do you think? I tell you what I told Ann, and we had gone to Lexington on Thursday night. I went to the Tennessee Wofford game. I went to see Jackson Civils play, and he had a good ball game. And Scott's a friend of mine, but then we went to watch the Kentucky women's team on Friday in Memorial Coliseum. Man had never been to Memorial Coliseum. Won that by 1. Then they lost a heartbreaker today by 1.
Who'd they play today?
Kansas State. Anyway, it was a very good game. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some of it. But it was like we're coming back, and then I started watching the Arkansas St. John's game, and I told Ann, I said, I'm not sure who's going to win, but I'm going to tell you this right now. Arkansas has the better team. And they did. And, and I wasn't a Cal basher. I think he needed to change, and we needed to change. We've got a good coach. Cal's still Cal. And they've had the kind of year just exactly like they would have had he been at Kentucky.
I've just never really followed. I think it's awesome that we have such a devoted following to one of our school, our Kentucky fans. Are some of the most diehard there is, and I think that it's awesome. I've never really got into it. I did get into Kentucky baseball. Because they were solid, and a kid that I had at Wren Lake was playing for them, so I was
really?
Jace Felker. Went to Caldwell County. He was a Caldwell County alum, but played for me at Ren Lake.
Okay.
And he ended up going to UK, and I think he played some second base for him.
Okay.
Actually, a lot.
Was he on the team that went to the College World Series?
Yeah.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
See, it was kind of funny. I always managed to find my way to make a trip when it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing Oregon State, in that best 2 out of 3. Yeah, it was Oregon State. And that's when Catherine was due with Alden. And so I told Ann, I said, well, we'll go stay up there. We don't know when the baby's going to be here, but we're going to be there.
Yeah.
So I managed to get 2 tickets right behind the Oregon State dugout, and we went to Game 3. That was one of the most awesome baseball games I have ever been to in my life.
Yeah. I went, the first job that I had out of college, I worked the College World Series. And just the atmosphere was insane. And I think that I don't know if Avery will be into that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But with my little man, if he is a baseball guy,
yeah,
which low key,
yeah,
not real low key, I hope that he loves it.
Well, sure,
as much as his dad. But if he doesn't, he doesn't. But I would love for the SEC tournament and for that, the College World Series and stuff, for that to be something that me and them do, because it's just such a cool thing. And you talk about watching baseball and just enjoying the game. That's it.
I've never been, and I would love to go.
Yeah.
I've been to Major League playoff games. I've never been to a World Series game.
Yeah. I haven't either.
But one of these days. But I was sitting in chair seat in right field the night that Rick Ankeel's pitching career fell apart.
Yes. When he got the yips.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember watching that. I wasn't there.
I was there, and I looked at Ann and I said, we are watching a guy's career go up in flames.
Yeah.
And I'll say this for Rick Ankeel. I give him credit for, for coming back and having a good career as an outfielder. But, I mean, he was a talented pitcher. But
yes, he was. Hammer for a curveball.
Oh, yeah. But that night, I mean, it was awful.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a sense that I'm saying bad things about Rick Ankeel. I felt for him.
Yeah.
It's like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
How do you explain it? I mean, other players who have the yips, it seems like second basemen seem to have the yips about as much as anybody.
I won't say his name, but the second base, when I was coming up my junior senior year, our second baseman had it.
Yeah.
And he threw one almost to the softball field.
Yeah.
And it does. I think it's because theoretically it's such an easy throw.
Yeah.
And you have all the time in the world. That's honestly, Dennis, why I started loving third base.
Yeah,
because
I can see why.
And talking about the difference in hitting velo and a soft lefty.
Oh yeah.
That's why I love third base as I got older.
Yeah.
Because there's not many in between balls hit to third base.
No.
It's either right on you, or it is one that you have to come and get full effort, so you still don't have time. It's slow, come and get it, boom.
And I don't think that people appreciate what a third baseman has to do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, okay, do you cut in front of the shortstop and take one?
Yeah.
And I've seen times where from the press box announcing the games, it's like, why didn't he come get that?
Yeah.
But I know you may think the same thing. It's easier said than done.
Oh, very much so.
It really is.
Very
it's easier said than done. And just like for playing shortstop, there's just a whole lot that goes into it.
There is, and there's a couple things that I know I have requests to talk to you about. Is just some of the guys that like we know right now as Marshall County baseball. So you've been calling the game for a long time.
Sure. For
Marshall, obviously. How many years did you say?
Oh well, I started doing basketball in 91.
Yeah.
And then I didn't start doing baseball until I guess 2010 was my first year doing baseball, and then I've done football sporadically.
Yeah.
But I've been doing baseball for Marshall County, like I said, since 2010.
So who's some of the when you think Marshall County baseball, who's some names that come to mind of guys that you feel like have maybe impacted you or impacted the program as a whole? And I'll throw some guys out that I remember.
Okay.
Like Aaron Edwards.
Yeah. Aaron was he was good.
Yes. He was a senior, I think, when I might have been like little. Baseball camp age.
Yeah, probably so, because Aaron was he was the catcher on the 2000 championship.
And I just remember the rumblings through the players who were working the camp that he was going to get drafted by the Yankees and stuff. Yeah. And I just remember as a young guy coming up, man, I was enamored by it.
Oh, sure, sure.
And that is what my perception of Marshall County baseball was, and I think that was one of the main reasons for us to bring back the camps and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think
just
it's
to
good.
get those kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like involved with those guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Ross Doherty.
Yeah, that's actually who I was about to bring up, him and JD.
Yes.
Because they're still impacting the program from a different standpoint now.
And I love seeing that.
Yeah.
Because they were both, just very good players.
Yeah.
You had good players on your teams.
Yeah.
You were as good as anybody who's played.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You are. And then you go to the next teams like Cody Forsythe.
Yep.
He was one bad pitch.
Yeah.
But we scored 0 runs against Lexington Catholic. Yeah. That was a good team.
Kind of just a connection to modern day. Cody was always, his freshman, sophomore year, he was kind of a soft throwing lefty.
Yeah.
And then I remember the day that he showed up at tryouts or whatever it was, and his fastball was electric.
Yeah.
And that is honestly the same thing as Bagby.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
You can answer that if you need to.
Oh no, it's
Catherine's
FaceTiming. That's okay. And she can call Ann.
Oh, okay.
I saw Alden yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what I'm seeing with Bagby this year.
Yeah.
He has made such a transformation, and it's him. He has worked his tail off.
Yeah.
But you bringing up Cody Forsythe, that's. I was thinking that literally yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, man, the similarities there, as a lefty. And Thomas wasn't a soft throwing lefty. He was low 80s last year, but just his demeanor, his confidence, his
always
presence.
had it. He has always had it.
Yes.
At least from what I've seen since he was a freshman.
Yeah.
Since you started putting him out on the mound in varsity games.
Yeah.
He's always had that.
Yeah.
I think back to some kids who I think helped out. Blake Johnson.
Yeah.
Blake was
great player.
And he battled shoulder problems.
Yeah.
But still, he went on, had a pretty good college career, I believe.
Yeah, he did.
And but Blake was another one.
We ended up crossing paths.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Blake, great kid. He actually went to Shawnee.
Okay.
Right out of high school, and then he transferred from Shawnee, and I was trying to get him to come to Wren Lake.
Okay.
And I guess at the same time, I thought I had an inside route because his buddy was Dixon Kraft, who went to Christian. He was Christian County, I think.
Okay.
And I thought we had him.
Yeah.
I thought we had him, and then all of a sudden, last minute, he goes to John A. Logan.
Uh-huh.
We end up getting in a bench clearing fight with them because of Blake. Blake and our second baseman end up tying up because Blake played the game hard.
Yes,
man.
he did.
He was gritty, fiery. Well, we had one of those on our team at second base.
Yeah.
Blake slides into second base. Probably wasn't even dirty. Might have been a little bit dirty. I don't know.
Yeah,
but there were words exchanged.
Oh, yeah.
Next thing I know, they're face to face. Well, then that was already a rivalry between us two.
Yeah.
Man, fans were climbing the fence, getting in the field
Wow.
and stuff. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was wild. But that's just the kind of player he was. Man.
Oh, yeah.
He was fiery. He was gritty. He had a great career at Logan, and then I think he went to Louisiana Lafayette. I think something like that.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, man, he was solid. Who else? Marshall County guys, which I'm sure you.
Of course, I go back to Chambers and but I'll tell you,
Corey.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, and we were talking about you're talking about shortstops.
Yeah.
And we talking about that earlier. One of the things that I can say from having coached summer ball is I know that there are at least two, and I'm not going to mention names, who were shortstops.
Yeah.
Always played shortstop. And I would I coach them in summer ball. And Danny Naughton comes to mind.
Yeah.
Danny was a shortstop. Danny didn't have the yips. Danny just didn't know where the ball was going to go when he fielded it at shortstop.
Yeah.
And Danny had a great arm.
Yeah.
He played, I guess, in the Mets organization. He was drafted.
Yeah.
But and he got a baseball scholarship at Murray State. And he was playing summer ball for me. And I just told him, I said, Danny, you're not going to play shortstop in college. I put him in the outfield, put him in center field.
Yeah.
That's where he played. I've seen a couple other kids that, and then they don't. Now, Danny wasn't particularly resistant to it, but I've had a couple others that, he's a shortstop. Well, he's okay at shortstop.
Yeah.
But why don't you let me put him where he's going to be good?
Yeah.
And where he's going to play.
Yeah.
Both in high school and if he goes on, center field might be a good place, or left field, or right field. You know, but oh no, they because shortstop's in the middle of the action.
Yeah.
Well, center fielder is in the middle of the action if they're doing it right. That I guess that's what gives me. Being an outfielder does not mean you're a spectator.
Oh my gosh, man! And the older you get, the more important it becomes to be in the outfield.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to that part of it, I think every parent wants their kid to be, right in the center of the field.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, as a coach, we got to put those kids in the best position to help the team.
That's right.
And the decisions that we make are because we see them every day.
Exactly.
We see that how the flow of practice and how they gel into a certain position or whatever it may be. I'm not taking your kid off of a certain position because of any reason.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just not where we see them fitting in with this group of kids.
Yeah.
And that could change year by year.
Well, it could, and it could change during the course of a season.
100%.
Because I've seen, last 2 or 3 years, I've seen players that, they get an opportunity in a position and they're not a good fit.
Yeah.
In the law, we talk when we're trying to get juries together. We ask prospective jurors, "Are you a good fit?" This case may not be there. You may not be a good fit for a particular case. Well, it may be the same with somebody in a particular position.
Yep.
But they might be able to help more at another position.
Yep.
And I've seen where you've lineups. It's nice to get your lineup settled as early as you can.
I know where you're going.
But it doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't.
And sometimes, well, I said earlier, ball doesn't lie.
Yeah.
And
that's
those to me are words to live by.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think we have to shuffle the cards early, and give opportunities and you just I think I told the boys as we got going, listen, playing time will be fair, but it won't be equal.
Right.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, and I'm so glad that you said it. Like, you have to find a way to be valuable even if you're not on the field.
Right.
And I think that the biggest thing and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, is just keeping everybody moving in the same direction. And, and if you stop rowing in the same direction and you're just riding the boat, you're moving in the opposite direction.
That's right.
And I think at the end of the day, high school baseball is about getting guys to whatever point it is after high school, whether that's their career or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
And making sure that you are a positive component to that experience.
Absolutely.
And I think just talking about some of those guys, JD so you mentioned Ross, JD. I know came back. He kind of helps out on a volunteer basis when he can. They have been phenomenal, man, with those younger guys. I'm so thankful for them.
Oh yeah.
And it's just we have a good situation now. But as I think that your perspective on this is so valuable, and I want to offer my perspective and then kind of hear what you think about it.
Sure.
So, and I'm not even saying that this is realistic, and I think it's kind of subjective, but. Sure. I think if the leagues are weakening, right?
Yeah.
Every year, and it's because we're losing these kids on kind of a mass exodus from rec ball to travel ball.
Yeah.
If we want to keep the league competitive, I guess my opinion on it is that you have an evaluation period from the very beginning. So when these kids sign up, like right now, Calvert, I think in particular, you sign up for a team, and then you're on that team for the duration of the time that you're in that.
That's through the West Kentucky League.
Yes, WKBSA.
Yes.
My opinion is these kids are developing at different rates, right?
Oh, yeah,
you might have a kid that is lower level that now he's going to instruction and he's getting lessons and stuff, and now he's at a different tier whenever he comes up. And I say tier because this is what I feel like is the piece, the missing piece, right? So every year you have an evaluation period. You're not set on one team with one coach, whatever.
Right.
Again, you need varying perspectives. You need different coaches, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I'll talk about something with that in just a second.
Okay.
But you evaluate these kids every single year,
yep.
Okay, and you put a number with them.
Right.
And there's probably going to be some perspectives that don't agree with that. But you grade these kids based on a scale from 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 or whatever. Well, then every single year you draft those kids.
Okay.
Each coach gets, and it's an open draft every year.
Right,
and all you know, maybe you don't even know the name of the kid.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Does that affect anything? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have, your 3 is your highest kid, your 2 is your intermediate kid, and your 1 is your developmental kid that still needs to improve.
Yes.
So then you have 5 coaches, and you just go through, just like in PE class. You pick the 3, you pick all the 3s.
Okay.
Then you pick the 2s.
Yeah.
Then you pick the 1s.
Okay.
Right? So now you're talking about your travel ball kids who can't find the competitiveness in rec league. Well, now they know that every day that they show up to the rec league game, they're going to be facing somebody's 3-level player.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that helps those kids while still raising the baseline for those lower kids.
Yeah.
Right? So now some kids are going to decide at some point they don't want to play anymore because even though that baseline has raised, now they're so far behind. Now they go and play soccer, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or they go and play basketball or whatever. Like you said, they focus their efforts.
Yeah.
But I think the issue is that this baseline continues to drop. So now that the exodus of talented players at that age is going to continue to push away. So if you can keep that core group and keep that baseline climbing and bringing these travel kids back to rec league while getting quality reps, that's only going to help those kids that aren't ready.
Right.
Because they're getting quality competition, as is the higher level kid.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a couple pieces that play into that. I think, as a community, I think we need to educate coaches. Yeah. I think that we need to, that way they can provide valuable perspectives to these kids.
Yeah.
And you're increasing the number of valuable coaches, right? So you don't have guys out there just coaching so that their kid can play shortstop.
Right.
You have a skill set, and you're equipping these coaches with the tools that they need to make these kids develop at rec league.
Yeah.
Because you said this too. Not everybody can afford. Not everybody has the time to play travel ball. So these leagues are extremely valuable to the community.
Yes, they are.
As a developmental component.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I think I probably told you about this, but that the Lake Area Fall League and the Lake Area Summer League, that's all I'm trying to do, but it's for that high school age kid.
Right.
So you're bringing these kids in, and they're playing on Tuesday nights because travel ball now is Thursday through Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you're bringing them in on Tuesday night.
Yep.
This is why this is beneficial, because on Tuesday night, those kids that are throwing on Thursday probably aren't pitching.
Right.
So what does that do on Tuesday? It gives the opportunity for a kid who doesn't play travel ball, or a kid that doesn't ordinarily pitch, it gives them the opportunity to throw on a Tuesday.
Right.
Now they're getting valuable reps on the mound, and I can promise you that helped us this year at the high school level, because there are kids that threw in those leagues, in those fall leagues and summer leagues, that didn't get the opportunity because they're not on a travel ball team,
right?
But they got valuable reps against good competition at the high school level. Now they're going to get varsity innings for us this year.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to get JV innings, probably going to get varsity innings, and it's because you're offering that sort of thing, right? So keeping that, what's going on at the high school level, and keeping that going at the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Sure.
You've got to have those strong players that are advanced playing to increase that. Right.
And you don't need them to choose not to play. Now, there's some kids, like you said, age 8, they're going to realize baseball's not their game.
Right.
But one thing that we haven't touched on, and I don't want to say too much about it, though, is T-ball.
Yes.
And anyway,
I'm probably with you.
I don't have much good to say about T-ball, although I do think this. I think that the idea is that first year they're playing, do they need to be playing T-ball at age 4? I don't know that I think that to be the case. And the reason I say that is when Catherine was 4 years old, I got involved in the league at Calvert, and one of the things I said is that I wanted 4-year-olds to be able to play T-ball. I was being selfish. I wanted Catherine to get to play T-ball.
Yeah.
That was one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life.
Well, it's kind of like herding cats. I mean, because we got Avery out there at 4.
Yeah.
And she wanted me, or actually her mom, beside her. And this year is the first year that she's actually going to play softball.
Okay.
It's off of a machine, which I wish that it was coach pitched, because I do think it's better to see the ball coming at you out of a hand.
I do too.
There's just so much, the timing mechanism. I think there's a lot that needs to be learned. But she's going to get out.
Right.
They're learning force outs. They're going to learn softball.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's beneficial. I think T-ball. I remember as a kid, my dad, I played it 1 year. He said, "Nope, you're out."
Yep. Good for him.
Yeah. And I started playing for Larry Witt in coach pitch, and I think I played coach pitch for 3 years. Then I progressed to kid pitch. And,
and I think that's probably the best way to. But the thing about T-ball, and I do think there is, frankly, I think that major leaguers, will do reps swinging the bat on the tee.
Oh yeah.
But
you got to master the simple, right?
Master the simple,
yes.
Yeah. But what we do is we get them out there. It's 95 degrees.
Yep. Bugs.
Half of them are rolling around in the dirt or the grass.
Yep. They're waiting for the Capri Sun at the end of the game.
Yeah.
That's their sole purpose.
And that's not a good thing for anybody. Yeah. I remember, like I said, the first year, and I'm coaching Catherine's team. So what do? The first thing, I line, we have 10 players now, groups, got 5 on one side, 5 on the other. All right, we're going to play catch. And actually only had 9 players, so I was playing catch with Catherine. And I threw the ball to her, and it hit her right in the forehead.
Yep.
And she starts squalling.
Yep.
I don't blame her. And then I realized, you're asking them to play pitch and catch, and they don't even know how to throw the ball, much less catch it.
Yeah.
And, okay, so you have to rethink real quickly. But again, better master the basics.
Yes.
But there are kids... And I've got a friend who sends me a picture of his son's disinterest in T-ball. It's comical.
It is.
But the kid doesn't want to play.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of Catherine's friends growing up, they were on the same T-ball team. And had uniform day. I mean, we've got a T-shirt. I said, put it on. No. He's a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
No. What do you mean, no?
Yeah.
As stubborn as he can be. I tried to physically put it on him, And he fought me. And I thought, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're going to be called in on the carpet for child abuse. And so fine. There's your jersey. You do what you want to with it. Well, of course, his mother and dad are dear friends of mine. They are to this day. So they got there, and I said, I forcibly tried to put that shirt on him.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
But he did not want to play.
Yeah, and I think, we kind of battled that with Avery a little bit.
Sure.
Like, I told Kaylin, my wife, I said, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, if she doesn't want to be out there, me forcing her will cause trauma to where she doesn't even, that she associates softball or t-ball with bad. With me being mad, and I don't want that. Like that's the last thing. I don't yell at my kids or I don't yell at the high school kids right now. I don't want to yell at her for not being out there spinning in circles. No, she has done a better job.
Well, that's good.
And she's 6 now, so sure. She's fired up and she wants to play stuff. But man, early on, I agree with you 100%. It can definitely be a
I'm gonna
battle.
have to cut this short,
Hey,
not because of the Kentucky game, but I got to be at church here in just a few minutes.
Hey, listen, I love it, man, Dennis. I think
if you want to do another one sometime, you just holler at me.
Hey, we'll do it. Listen, hey, I just want to say I appreciate you. And I appreciate everything that you've done for me and for the program. And I appreciate your time and your willingness to work out of the kindness of your heart and love for the game and love for Marshall County. And I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Take care.